and welcome to Daily Debrief brought to you by People's Dispatch. I'm Pragya and today we talk about austerity in Portugal and South Europe, the Paris Olympics and the US housing crisis. Marta Temido, Health Minister of Portugal, resigned on Tuesday after a pregnant woman died during a hospital transfer. The transfer was because Portugal shut emergency obstetric services to meet budget cuts. Since the Great Recession, the European Union and IMF demanded tough austerity measures from Portugal. The government's own tax hikes and slashed public sector wages, pensions, and social security have caused plenty of hardship. Health budgets have seen some of the steepest cuts, leading to communicable diseases and higher suicide rates due to mental health declines. Even economies emerging out of IMF's austerity measures are hard hit by health worries such as Greece. We have Jyotsna from People's Health Movement to talk about this. Okay, Jyotsna, good to have you here. Jyotsna, can you start by telling us about the austerity measures, how they have affected healthcare in particular in Portugal?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, so we are talking about Portugal and it has come in the limelight because of the health minister resigning after an Indian tourist, a pregnant woman, died there. But I think the string of events goes much further in the time. And it is not just with regards to Portugal, but after the 2008 economic crisis, the kind of austerity measures that were put in place in Southern Europe that really impacted health and healthcare in these countries. And if we talk about Portugal, it is already very well reported that there is such acute shortage of staff across hospitals, across healthcare facilities in Portugal. And that is what happened in this particular case as well, because the woman had to be shifted from one hospital to the other in Lisbon because there was nobody to attend to her. And this is not the only time it has happened. In fact, if you speak to people there, some would tell you that in some cases, the neonatal unit is functional in a public hospital, but not the other units. So for other maternity related treatment or when you want to attend to other things, then you have to go to another hospital. So it is quite a breakdown of the system. That's what has happened. So that's what happened in Portugal as well. And we are seeing some major crisis in terms of shortage of staff there. Yeah.
Right, Jyotsna. Jyotsna, what is wrong with austerity measures? What has been the effect on the economy, on the healthcare services in Southern Europe as a whole?
Yes. So as I said, it all came into place after 2008 economic crisis, and we were told that the way to recover is to go for austerity measures. But what are austerity measures at the end of the day? It sounds like a good word in English, but not in economics, because it essentially means that the government has to cut down its spending, and especially in those sectors which are not giving the revenue back to the government. Which in practical terms means largely the social sectors, and therefore the employment starts to get affected badly. Privatization of the social sectors start to happen. Education, health, all these are the sectors which get affected adversely because the government would not be spending there. So, for example, if you look at Italy, then Italy put austerity measures in place since 2010, so from 2010 to 2020, 19% of pneumological beds in Italy got reduced. What are pneumological beds? They are related to your lung diseases. So something which really impacted Italy really badly during COVID, because 20% of reduction of the beds which are related to lungs diseases were not available, which were there in 2010. So that was bad. Greece, oh my God. So there is a study by Amnesty International, which has really collected a lot of other research studies and have done their own work. This is a 2020 report, which shows in Greece, 42% reduction in health expenditure by the government from 2010 to 2017-18. It is huge. So Italy was spending something more than 15 million euros on public health, and it got reduced to less than 9,000 euros, 9,000 million, so 15,000 million to 9,000 million euros within a matter of less than a decade. And it impacted the HIV population a lot. From early on itself, we started to see increase in HIV cases in Greece. It has, so for example, what happened was, so when this expenditure reduces, people have to start spending more. So your out-of-pocket expenditure of individuals increase. Now, austerity measures also mean more unemployment. So more people are getting unemployed, and there is more health burden on people in terms of out-of-pocket expenditure. So certain benefits were taken off in Italy from the insurance package. One was polymerase test, the polymerase chain reaction test, which is important for people living with HIV. Now, and people could not then pay for it. They were also getting unemployed. So there is a chain of stuff that has happened due to austerity. So less expenditure on health, but less expenditure on, but also losing your employment then just aggravates the problem. So I think what we can call these are actually deaths by austerity. It can't be termed as anything else. And this is what we are seeing in Southern Europe over the last 1 decade.
Right, Jyotsna, and that would also explain why a lot of public sector workers and workers in other sectors have been protesting in Portugal repeatedly, asking for these measures to be reversed. Thanks a lot for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting.
The organizers of the Paris Olympics are talking about keeping costs down. The 2024 Games will encourage visiting team officials to use public transport. Rentals will be less expensive too. The organizing committee is seeking more such out-of-the-box ideas. In inflation-struck France, 6% and rising, the over €8 billion Games budget is at a risk of evaporating somewhat quickly. But the French organizers have thanked the IOC, the International Olympic Committee, whose Coordination Commission visited France this week for its flexibility. Siddhant Ani from NewsClick is here to talk about this. Okay, Siddhant, thanks for joining us. Siddhant, what is the Coordination Commission actually up to in Paris?
Thank you for having me. It's good to be on this chair for a while. We should do this, I think, more often.
You'll be on the other chair very soon in a minute.
Right. What we're hearing from the International Olympic Committee is that, of course, as things always are, the Paris Olympics 2024 are right on track. The city is, of course, it's not the first time it's hosting the Olympic Games, and it is a major sort of sporting destination as such. So infrastructure-wise, not much new being built in terms of sporting infrastructure, at least. There's an aquatic center that's coming up in a new part of Paris, as well as an athletes' village that will then, like has been the case in the last previous major games, whether they are Commonwealth Games, Asian Games, etc., etc. After the games are done, these are then repurposed for housing.
Right.
Right. So what the coordination committee has seen essentially is that that a large number of Parisians and people in France in general seem to be in support of hosting the games. The expenditure is a key concern, of course, because like we know, Europe is not in good shape. Austerity measures are in place everywhere. And because of all of that, public expenditure, particularly in terms of hosting these thousands of athletes, almost 15,000 people will be in the city for over the two weeks or so that the games will happen. Of course, there'll be many others who will be there beforehand, setting things up, organizing things and all of that. So the key effort, I think, at this point is to keep expenditure as low as possible as far as the Olympic Games are concerned. And I think to do that, they use language that is very hard to understand, at least in these press releases, things like optimization, efficiency, what they are optimizing for and how they are becoming more efficient, and how that features with the ideals of the Olympic movement is open to discussion and perhaps a longer conversation. For example, one of the legacy aims of the 2024 Paris Olympics is to encourage young children to play 30 minutes of any sport or do some physical activity for 30 minutes every day. Now, might be a question in your mind, like why does it take a super expensive event like an Olympic Games to get something as basic as kids to play for 30 minutes a day? And I would say that's a fair question. But that, I suppose, is a larger question of big events and legacy projects like these. Um, as of now, though, the way things look, Paris seems on track for most things to go, at least according to what their plans are, and even budgets and things like that, not as overinflated as we've seen. In Tokyo, we saw it started at around $8 billion and then went up almost 3 times that. So those kind of things have a serious political impact in the country that is hosting the games, obviously, because whatever anyone might tell you, when these big games happen, the cost of it is borne by the taxpayers of the country that's hosting.
Indeed, yeah. So, Siddhant, also, like in terms of the legacy of the game, where does Paris really stand? Will it be an austere game? What's going to happen?
It'll be a European Games, So if you look at, let's say, the first time we saw this stark difference between a European nation hosting a major event was in 2012. Before that, in Beijing, everything was on a massive, grand scale. The country, China, pulled out all stops in terms of hospitality for people coming in, whether it was athletes, media, officials, organizers, whatever. Everything was kind of looked after, taken care of, etc., etc. When you came to London 4 years later, things were very different. Everyone was left to their own devices, essentially. Accommodation for people like us from the press was extremely expensive. You had to use public transport quite often to get around. Of course, there were some shuttles for the media from location to location, but things were much more austere, like you said, much more difficult, and the onus of it was much more on those participating to sort out their own issues rather than by what is called the games family.
Okay.
Right, in a very sort of nice, friendly manner. But the games family, then they decide that only exists to the core of it, which is essentially athletes and officials who are participating. Everyone else, whether it's spectators or media or broadcasters, are left to their own devices and have to deal with those things themselves. But yeah, we will see in austere games. Unfortunately, one of the negatives of that is that no new parts of Paris or the Paris region, Ile-de-France, will actually get access to new sporting facilities. So one of the major things that any of these mega events leads to is the development of infrastructure. But because they are using largely pre-existing venues, nothing new will come up. So areas of the city and around that don't currently have access to good sporting facilities will not really get any of those through the games. So, it's still a way off to determine the full extent of how the legacy will work. But I think it's more a prestige kind of event at this point rather than anything else, actually, that we can really put our finger on at this point. Last bit, if I can just add very quickly, that on the 8th of this month, the executive board of the IOC will meet in Lausanne, which is the headquarters of the IOC. And I think we'll have a little bit more information then on specifics of how things are going forward, and particularly with regard to expenses and how the French government is dealing with things.
Okay, Siddhant, thanks a lot for joining us. 1 of 10 houses in the United States are vacant, and yet few can seem to afford them. Housing prices are high, not enough homes are on the market, and nobody has money to buy them anyway. Median rents are also at record highs. That, in a nutshell, is the United States housing and rental crisis, which experts predict will worsen as global economic uncertainty persists. Interest rates are also high in the United States, and the interest in buying homes has tanked as a result. While potential buyers hope to purchase a home, many actual buyers, like the hedge funds and mutual funds, are holding the stock and the rates. The subprime mortgage crisis triggered a recession in 2008. The world is still recovering from that. Will the situation repeat? My colleague Siddhant Ane spoke to Natalia Marquez from People's Dispatch earlier.
Natalia, welcome back to Daily Debrief. Good to have you here as usual. First up, what has led to this spiraling housing crisis in the United States with so many people facing imminent eviction from their homes?
Yeah, so right now the US Census Bureau predicted that 3.8 million tenants are likely to be evicted only in the next 2 months. This is an astronomical number considering that in the entire year of 2018, only 3.6 million eviction cases were filed. And the eviction lab at Princeton University estimated that there were less than 1 million evictions in 2016. And so this number is astronomical. It's also just the tip of the iceberg. The Census Bureau also estimated that 8.5 million tenants are behind on their rent at the end of August. This is because of a lot of different reasons, but a lot of those reasons were very predictable and avoidable. In June of this year, median rents in the US topped $2,000 per month, which is the highest that they've ever been in the history of the United States. Renters have seen rent increases by almost 25% since before the pandemic, with an increase of 15% in just the last 12 months. Nearly half of renters have been hit with rent hikes. And so, rents have increased dramatically for a lot of different reasons, high inflation, and also this notion of a housing shortage, which is important to analyze a little bit more carefully, because nearly 1 in 10 homes are vacant in the United States, but there's an affordability shortage. So there's a shortage of affordable units. Also, the wages of people in the United States are still very low compared to the price of housing. The average wage that a worker must earn to afford a 1-bedroom unit is over $20 per hour. The minimum wage across the United States is $7.25 per hour. President Biden himself abandoned the struggle for a higher minimum wage at the very beginning of his presidential term. And also, the federal eviction moratorium has not been in effect for a very long time. And so, there's so many different elements of this, but a lot of this was very avoidable. The United States has had a shortage of affordable homes for a long time, even before the pandemic. More could have been done to build affordable housing, to make existing housing affordable, and also to raise wages in the United States for the lowest income workers. This could have really avoided this massive astronomical eviction crisis that we're facing right now.
You rightly pointed out, Natalia, that it's not a secret. Everyone is well aware of the problem, and of course, the fact that 1 in 10 homes are actually not occupied. The numbers are really staggering. What indication, or if any, do you have from any members or any parts of the administration showing that there's an actual move to deal with an ongoing crisis that only seems to be getting worse?
Yeah, so far it doesn't seem like the Biden administration has taken any significant measures to avoid this massive eviction crisis that's coming in the next 2 months. Again, Biden abandoned the fight for $15 minimum wage. Biden also and previous administrations have not made really significant moves to build more affordable homes. This has been true of cities across the United States. Public housing is no new public housing is really being built in a massive scale. And the eviction protections that existed during the pandemic have expired. Some states are lagging behind in distribution of emergency rental assistance funds, and also 2 states, Nebraska and Arkansas, rejected any rent relief funds from the government in the second round of rent relief funds. And so it doesn't seem like there's a really significant move to address this crisis right now.
All right. Thanks very much for that update, Natalia.
No problem.
And that's all we have for you today. Thank you for watching Daily Debrief. Do come back to us tomorrow. And for more updates like this, please visit our website, peoplesdispatch.org, and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.